Thank you all for coming. Good afternoon. I'm very happy to see all of you here. Good turnout, good food, good company, and a wonderful speaker. It's my privilege today. Thank you so much. Sorry, we have a suspicion that means company is coming. So we'll have more visitors. It's my privilege today to introduce our speaker, Father Vincent Sekhar, a Jesuit, a member of the Institute of Dialogue with Cultures and Religions at Loyola College in Chennai in southern India. He previously served as secretary for interreligious dialogue for the Jesuit Conference of South Asia, and is a faculty member at the Aral Anandar College in Madurai, Tamil Nadu, in India. Father Sekhar attended the University of Madras, one of very few Christians to get a PhD in the study of Jain religion and philosophy. He was a Woodstock Theological Center visiting fellow in 1999, and he served as director of the Dhyana Ashram, the Institute for Spiritual Animation and Interreligious Relations in Madras. He's taught theology in various institutions, various seminaries throughout Madras, and been involved in youth ministry. He's the author of a number of books, including Religion in Public Life, A Practical Guide to Religious Harmony, Building Strong Neighborhoods, I see he's brought a copy of that, Religion, Ecology, and the Environment, a groundbreaking work, which I hope he will be able to talk more about. He gave a series of lectures at Georgetown in 2006 on interreligious dialogue in India and politics in post-independence India. Today he's agreed to speak to us about the complexity of interfaith relations in South Asia, particularly among Hindus, Muslims, Jains, and Christians, through the lens of recent events. So it gives me great pleasure to welcome Father Vincent Sekhar.
My dear friends, I would like to thank the Center Prince Al-Walid bin Talal Center for Muslim Christian Understanding, especially to Dr. John Borelli, who connected me to the center, and afterwards Dr. Professor Emeritus John Wall and Tamara, who really actually invited me to the center to give this talk. You know, this is a very important topic. It's a very vast topic. It's very difficult for me actually to deal with all aspects of life, especially which has a religious relationship. It's like standing in the Potomac River Key Bridge and then looking at Georgetown University, what's going on here in Georgetown University. It's very difficult what goes on in Georgetown University, standing in Key Bridge. So it is, anyway, whatever I could gather, collect the materials I shall share with you, also my reflections. I have been in this area of interreligious dialogue for the last 25 years, serving as the secretary for the Jesuit Conference twice. I have visited almost all provinces of India. Once I tried to go to Lahore, and that time there was a feud between these two countries, and then they said, I mean, better not to visit there now. So afterwards, I had no chance at all. You know, when I talk about religious relationship, I say focused. It is religiously held relationships and also purposeful. It's not just a human relationship, say a conversation on weather or ice cream, things like that. No, it is not. And this relationship involves all aspects of religion. So you can call it, say, the founders. You talk about the founders, the disciples, the followers and its associations like the Sangha, the church, the temple. And you have got all the sacred rituals that are around scriptures, sacred utterances, symbols, myths, parables. So anything that is really related to interreligious dialogue, especially any aspect of religion. The conversation that we hold on any aspect of religion is, I call, a kind of a religious, it has got a religious ground. So this relationship may or may not have any implications or influence or any other aspect of life, like politics, education, health, and things like that. And also, I think that it also varies with the age and experience. So people who are elderly, senior, and they have learnt more from different traditions, and they talk about it in a very sensible manner. Then youngsters, like the students in Arulanandar College or Loyola College. So you have this one. I have certain basic premise to talk about religious relationship. What are they? First of all, the grounding reality is the diverse human experiences. It's a starting point for any reflection. Diverse human experiences is not simply homogeneous. And also, I believe as a theist that there is a mystery of the divine that has several expressions of itself in so many ways, and religions, I feel, is one of them, not the whole thing. So the mystery of the divine expresses itself in religious traditions, through religious people, through religious communities. And I feel that each religion is very rich in resources. They have lots of communion, interrelationships, and it is unique. And you also find a kind of a unifying experiences, unifying elements. This is what I have brought out in two of these books. What the religions talk about with regard to ecology and environment, for instance. All religious traditions are there on different themes that are relating to ecology and environment. So it is easy, actually. There are a number of quotes are there. So you will find, especially for the students. And this book is something similar. Let us stand up for prayer. So these are all, actually, this book deals with the 50 themes, like charity, sacrifice, love, mother, all kinds of ideas are there. 50 themes are there. And then under each theme, you have got what the religious traditions are saying, especially the sacred texts. So it is meant actually for the students in the schools and the colleges, especially for assemblies and the interreligious get-togethers, prayer, etc. So this is what I also do, just showing that there are unifying elements in this, without forgetting that there are lots of differences between religious traditions. But I also feel at the same time, as a basic premise, that religious pluralism, though it is a fact, it's a reality, it can cause lots of concern. It's very difficult to understand this very concept itself. But we need to preserve, we need to promote this kind of pluralistic ideas, which actually implies that we need to have a kind of an accommodative spirit. Otherwise, this pluralism will mean no sense, actually. And also, when we learn from each other that we need self-correction and also grateful emulation. These are some of the premises that I have. You see, this is South Asia. India is quite big. It's certainly one-third of America in space. But 3 times the population when compared to America. So you got the neighboring countries are there: Pakistan, Afghanistan. This side you got the Nepal, Bhutan, Bangladesh, and you got Burma, Myanmar. I am residing here in Chennai, down below. And the headquarters are here in New Delhi. So it's almost like 3,000 kilometers, which means like journeying 3 to 5 hours by flight to any corner here. So it is also difficult for me to sit here in Chennai and to look into what is going on in other places. And the difficulty becomes more and more because of the pluralistic traditions with regard to languages, with regard to regions, with regard to religions, with regard to cultures. They say that almost 3,000 languages and dialects are spoken in India. So if you really cross, say, Chennai and then go to this side, and then I have to know the other language, Telugu. Or this side, Malayalam. it's not easy actually to relate in that case. There is a unifying language which is English, but it happens only that's because of the Britishers and its legacy. But good. So actually we are able to deal, especially in the academic institutions, because of English. English is our medium. So you know that here majority Muslims are there. Bangladesh, majority Muslims are there. And you have got the Myanmar, majority Buddhists are there. Sri Lanka, majority Buddhists are there. Nepal, more or less equal Hindus and Buddhists are there. Here, majority Hindus, more than 75%. I would say that the interreligious relationship has got two important levels. The first level is at the ground level. Ground level, when I mean that it is one-to-one, one to a group, between families and families, and you also say and see that this particular ground level, micro level relationship, it is ongoing, and it is that which really cherishes bond, which cherishes relationships, which becomes really personal and social and most engaging. So you will find actually at the ground level this relationship is going on. It is this ground level relationship that has kept on India and other countries for so long, for centuries. Families binding each other. When I say that it is a ground level, it also means that we share with one another all good wishes, especially with when there is a religious festival or occasions when people meet each other. So there is also a sharing of goods, sharing of food, things like that. On religious occasions or festive occasions, there is a lot more gatherings. You will really, it's difficult for you to understand how many gatherings take place actually in India, especially their festive occasions. Every week there is a festive occasion. And you step out Loyola College and there are at least some 5 shrines, the temples are there, Hindu temples are there. If you go there and then every day they say that this is the day for this is the day for this, like this. So much of celebrations and so much of socializing is there. That's what I say that this is this relationship that really keeps people on together for most part. And there is also, people getting married nowadays, very common now, between religious traditions. Interreligious marriages are there. Of course, intercaste marriages are there, which both of them are taboo in India because it does not fall in the rule of arranged marriage. Arranged marriage is very common there. Nowadays, people fall in love with each other and then tell the parents that you arrange the marriage. So, there's no difficulty at all. But you see that you have to go to the temple. A Christian has to go to the temple. There are 2 types of marriages. When one's daughter is a Christian and then you're getting married to a Hindu, then there are 2 marriages there. One in the temple, one in the church, which certainly our clergy especially discourage this kind of a thing. But it is very common. You can have 3 marriages, 3 times tying of the thalis here and there. So like that. So you find that you need to go there. There is an obligation as well as a kind of a necessity. Also, with regard to business, there is a necessity and there is an obligation, especially. And I would say that such relationships actually spill out and then extend to other social outreach programs, especially on critical occasions. What do you mean by critical occasions? Supposing if there is an earthquake or if there is a kind of a flood. Very recently that in December we had Chennai full of floods, full of waters. Actually, for 2 months nearly, we could not do anything. So you would see some of these pictures of Chennai floods. I chose these 2 photographs just to say that people are really engaged in outreach program. Whether they are Muslims or Hindu sannyasis or Hindu monks, they are from Ramakrishna Mutt actually. So what really brings people together, especially at a crisis moment, It is simply a kind of a humanum, the humanity that brings people together. You know, especially during this Chennai floods, you know, all the movie theaters were open, schools, colleges, premises were open for people to accommodate. Especially in Loyola College, we had the privilege of accommodating nearly 2,000 people who were affected by these floods, especially at the river banks there. So, and you see that individuals and families are coming out to say that I have 2 beds in my room. We still have a place in our apartments that you can send. And you know, nowadays you got the social media and WhatsApp, you know, it goes on. I don't know, more than 100 phone numbers are there. So anybody who needs some help or other, you see, people don't think that they belong to this caste or this religion. Whether this community is speaking this language or that language. The crisis moment simply, you know, it brings people together, crossing boundaries. All kinds of boundaries are there. So I would like to say a small story of this brownstone apartment just outside Loyola College walls. This brownstone apartment that you see there, it houses perhaps some 100 families are there. And these people, 1/3 of them are Muslims, as much as you know, and 2 Sikh families are there, and a few Jains are there, and the rest of them are Hindus and Christians. These people, they were actually during the Chennai floods offering food daily, and they had immediately put up an organization among themselves, realized that they need to plunge in, especially in these things. And then they, to tell you the truth, that they were actually preparing. They will say, tomorrow morning we are going to prepare this bread or this rice cake or this dosa or this pongal, whatever it is. All the families prepare the same thing. Whatever they can do, I mean, to their capacity. If the money is there, they will do more. And they all brought everything actually to Loyola College, where it became, we just initiated having all these people here in the premises, but finally it turned out to be a center for distribution. Any amount of medicines, any amount of clothes, beddings, any amount of all kinds of things that you can see in a departmental store, the library became a departmental store there. Yeah, I would like to say that. So especially on a time like this, you find that people go out of themselves, and you know, I feel that these religious relationships take place unconsciously. This is a time when people step into another, and then they have lots of conversations, and then they also know that he's a Muslim or he's a Christian, he's a Hindu, like that. So what happens is, next time when such occasions come, or outside these occasions, they are too familiar with them. When you actually talk to these people, this brownstone apartment people, they say, as a kind of an evaluation, they said, we never knew that you people were staying in this apartment. We would invite you for our Diwali, one of the festivals. We would invite you for our Christmas. So people have this kind of an idea of going out. So I would say, there is a kind of a religious dialogue that is taking place unconsciously. And along with this, shedding of prejudice. It is a very important thing actually in India. It's very difficult to shed prejudice, because we have got all historical hurts are there, historical memories are there. It's very difficult, especially with regard to the Christian missionaries, or the Muslim rule, or the British rule. You have got many historical memories and hurts are there, and then that need to be healed. And because of this kind of prejudice, it's very difficult for people to move with one another. But whereas this kind of an occasion, a critical occasion, has brought people together to see each other, to talk to each other, and to go outside of themselves. As you see that nothing compelled them, restricted them. They simply plunged in the saving act of humanity. It is just like the parable that you find in Buddhist scripture. the man and the poisoned arrow. So it comes in a Chula Malunkya Vada Sutta, the shorter instruction of Malunkya. Is very simple. The story is that a person who is affected is attacked by an arrow. He is not really considering at this time who shot the arrow, from what background. Is he a Hindu? Is he a tribe? Or is he from an upper caste or a lower caste? He would rather say, my arrow has to be plucked out and I need to be treated. That's the thing. So he is not really bothered about what really going on. So something like this, that these people simply plunged in, nothing bothered. The inmates did not critically assess the affected area, the people, their social backwardness, or economic position, etc. So you find the emotion somehow or other had overpowered them than reason. If you think about, if you rationalize, you will find, okay, they are somebody else. I am somebody. But it is not that. It is the emotion that actually that bound them together. I would say it is the idea of humanum that really unites people together, which is a kind of a collective ethos. And such relationships really accelerate. This good relationship of trust, of cooperation, simply accelerates because they know each other now. Now, if you cannot touch with this brownstone apartment so quickly, you cannot sow any seed of dissension there, because people have come together on a critical basis, on a very important time. So it is very difficult actually. So there are, I would say, there are umpteen number of examples for people to come together for care and protection. And especially, India is really prone for riots. So you have got a history of riots there. Almost every year there is a riot. Big riots, small riots, conflicts, hatred, any number of them. So you find actually when things happen in a very big scale, like the Babur's mosque was demolished in 1992, which was called a Black Sunday, and after that, the aftermath, I don't know how many thousands died. How many thousands were killed, the Muslims were killed. So it's a very, very sad event, actually. You see the Baba's mosque, I mean, the Hindus, when I say it is a Hindu fundamentalist, is a very small percentage of people. Perhaps I would say not more than 10% or 5%. It's a small group of people, very aggressive in their manners, who want a kind of a Hindu nation to be established. So these are the people who say that Muslims and Christians are anti-nationals. And they have got their loyalties either in Rome, Vatican, or in other Muslim countries. They are not loyal to us. Of course, I will say that so much of a prejudice, a kind of a stereotyping is being made on people. So, see, once it was destroyed, you see the kind of a place. They believe that that Ram's temple, that is the Hindu Ram's temple, was there, and then on which this Muslim emperor built this mosque. There's a belief, but never proved. It went up to the archaeology. They say it, yes, there was a temple inside. Nobody can prove these things. So, actually, after 20 years of this Babri Masjid destruction took place, actually, one reporter had asked one of these Muslims after 20 years what really happened to him and to his family, and he said this: one of my Hindu neighbors took my family to their home and said, "You should not sleep in your home as you could be attacked." The next day, there was more depressing news. Every Muslim shop in the area had been burned down by the Hindu mobs. My neighbors felt it was not safe for us to live in a Hindu area and believed we should move to a Muslim neighborhood as soon as possible. He says, I salute my neighbors, one a Hindu and the other a Christian, who drove my family amidst the riots to a Muslim area, risking their own life in a Muslim neighborhood. So he's saying this kind of things. So you have at least 2 books written on what had happened in Ayodhya, what the people of Ayodhya talk about. There are any number of Hindu mutts are there. the Swamijis are the kind of the heads of maths are there. They have all kinds of ideas with regard to this one. They normally say that before this destruction took place, people were like brothers and sisters here. There is something that has really caused trouble. They themselves acknowledge this without pointing out directly that these are the Hindu fundamentalists or the fanatics. So, and the second level of religious relationship, I would say, which is really difficult, really tough. It is at the socio-political level, because it is here that religion and politics mingle. Actually, religious traditions are not simply lying all alone, but somehow or other the political leaders, these religious heads, they come together, and there is lots of kind of ambiguous things that go on, and then they don't say it outside, and then so much of negotiations take place. Like that. At one time, the Hindu sannyasis, the monks, the sages, they fall in line with the political leaders, finally, So, and the political leaders also will not be able to leave these sages alone, because they have a say in the matters of religion. So like that. When you talk about society and politics, especially religious communities in political arena, the distinctions and differences are not seen as just variations. Hindus are Hindus, Christians are Christians. No, it's not just another, they are a different group and another group, but they are seen as we and they, which means they are strangers. They are not the same as us. Sometimes it also goes to the extent of saying that they are enemies. They are outsiders. So they have come here. So it is, we cannot really take this group as such, Christians, Muslims, Hindus as the group, especially in the context, in the political context. Then we cannot see it as a kind of, they are Christians, Muslims, but they are seen as strangers. And you see this actually when there is a kind of a material exchange, material sharing is there. See, lots of problems, especially with regard to our state and the neighboring states on electricity, on water. So once the riot comes, and then you don't see any transports going to the other state. And similarly, from the other state, no transport, no buses, no trains come to the neighboring states. So somehow or other, everything becomes a kind of a standstill. So we still have something that really holds all these people, what we call a kind of a mystical, Indological axiom, like called the Brahman. Brahman is the mystery which simply envelops everything. Brahman is the one that envelops all differences within it, without actually distinguishing these differences. But there is a kind of idea of Vasudha. Vasudha is Vasudha iva Kutumpakam. Kutumpam is family. Vasudha is nature. Nature is a family, which means the whole globe is one family. The world is as one family. Such beautiful axioms are there. But still, when it comes to material sources, there is always, your stomach is different from mine. My stomach is different from yours. So we have to somehow or other negotiate among ourselves. Perhaps if it ends up in fight. It's as simple as that, So every group nowadays actually, especially in the political arena, becomes a kind of a collective group with a kind of a collective ethos to fight for its survival. And you will find, especially in India, the RSS, the Hindu fundamentalists, their Rashtriya Swayam Sevak. And you see also in the neighboring countries, in Sri Lanka, for instance, Bodhibala Sena. And you find in Myanmar, you find this Mabata. All these are monks groups. When I saw some of the YouTube, the collections of, how these people engaged in the dialogue, it's really sickening, to use a very, very bad word. It's really sickening. You really immediately think, are they monks? Are they Buddhist monks? Are they the followers of Buddha, the great man? It's very difficult to say. You just see one or two of these YouTube clippings, the movie clippings, and then you will find, you will be simply alarmed, you know. So you find in all these countries, somebody or other actually trying to take hold of the majority of people. But you go and see and talk to the majority of Hindus, they will not vouch this. They would say, no, 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 we, in our families, in our apartments, we live in harmony, don't divide us. My son or daughter is married to another family who is a Hindu or a Muslim. Don't divide us. Because it's a kind of a personal lifestyle, the family lifestyle that matters very much. So you find, see, for instance, this RSS in India, almost like a kind of a paramilitary force. So they organize themselves and then they are very aggressive. These are the people who destroyed Babar Masjid. You know, these are the people. So they have got so many kind of expressive units are there. So, and you see this monks in Sri Lanka. And you find this Mabata monks, you know. There was a great council actually held in an auditorium. It's a large number of monks, laities and all those things, in which they were actually celebrating that some of the legislatures were passed in Myanmar. What is the legislatures? One of the legislature is to control the birth rates. To control birth rates without saying, you know, directly about Muslims. See? And they succeeded in passing this legislature because of the power of these people, though it's a very small group. This I would say that it's operating almost in every place. There is also another movement called 969. I just tried to check what this 969. It refers some kind of a symbolically and mysteriously Buddhist practices and Buddhist followers, something like that. So, like 420. So you find, you know, this kind of, you know, this particular area where these people were engaged. I mean, the Buddhists were engaged to drive away the Muslims from Rohingya village. So one particular example that I have picturized there. One or two things I would like to say and then finish it. First thing is there is lots of image building in all these countries. There is a deliberate and very conscious effort at image building as not your friends, as your enemy. And this is really supported by all the right wings, including the politicians. Many a time, the sages, the monks. And you also see that there is a role of media. You know, role of media, usually it accelerates, it booms, and then it exaggerates many things. Nowadays, you know, they are hungry for news, so they have to go to all these places and then they have to give news. No, otherwise that person will be fired. Also, with lots of pressures, people work. And there is a kind of a image building that works on both sides. Say, for instance, how a Jain community projects itself as a community. A very rich community, affluent community, and at the same time vouch non-violence. Like that. Very marketing people, actually. They talk to you very smoothly and all. So that is why their business is very good. Actually, you know. So you find also, you know, from this side, how you project yourself, and from the other side, how you are perceived. So there is lots of differences also are there. So I have actually had several times a kind of a survey among the students in Arulanandar College, Karmathur in Madurai district. They would always say that you just write down some 5 points positive and 5 points negative about Christians, about Hindus, about Muslims. So a Hindu says all kinds of things. And finally, you see that all stereotyped ideas are there, which they have not actually verified. They have not verified. Say, for instance, I'll give you a kind of a perception about Muslims in India. There is a kind of a senior fellow at the Center for Development Studies in Delhi, Madhu Kishwar, and she is writing in 1998 already, perception of Muslims by the Hindu revivalists. Muslims are not loyal to this country and harbor pro-Pakistan sentiments. They refuse to accept the common civil code. They have got their own personal laws, including, of course, Christians also. Muslims do not allow even reasonable criticism of Islam. Muslims in India are willing pawns in the games played by Pakistani neighbors. Muslims make unreasonable and anti-national demands. Muslims behave like a virtual nation within a nation. Muslims are people who assert their right to be above the law of the land. Muslims continue to honor even those rulers who persecuted Hindus. And there is also a kind of a special autonomous status that has been given to Jammu and Kashmir. It is something very different from all other states. Large-scale inflow of Muslim Bangladeshi immigrants into India, that is very jeopardizing, dangerous to the security of India. The mullahs do not allow Muslims to accept birth control measures. You see this part of it, part of the problem. Muslim leaders try to dictate on foreign policy matters to the Indian government. India is surrounded by very hostile and troublesome Muslim nations, and so on. This is the kind of a perception that has been propagated. It's not really true, because the same lady Schild tells us finally, but Kishwa says that a large number of these charges are based on half-truths, outright lies, and paranoid fantasies. The second important thing is there is unwanted provocations are there in all these countries. Unnecessary. We will say, why did you bring this topic now at this time? Say, for instance, one state minister, the union minister, is saying that Bhagavad Gita should be the universal scripture at one time, suddenly. Now, in a country where all others are there, how can Bhagavad Gita, which is a Hindu scripture, become a kind of a universal scripture or a common scripture for India? How can this yoga day should be celebrated worldwide and in all the schools? You know, in India, Christian institutions are known for education. Any number of schools and colleges are there. So how can you just introduce a yoga day or a yoga, even though you may think that yoga is something very good, and you also think that it is only a physical exercise. But you know, it starts with the kind of a vandana or the kind of a mantra which resides that you offer a kind of an obeisance to the deity, which is a Hindu deity. How can you expect a Muslim school madrasa to obey to this command? So you just, you start something like this and then make an uproar. And the media actually collects all these things and then it booms. This is what happens. And the very important thing is, this kind of ideas, somehow or other, it reaches to the common people at the ground level. This is the problem here. This kind of ideas that you read in the newspapers, in the videos or in the TVs, it simply affects the common mass. Finally, they say, is it true? Could it be? No. That's very dangerous, actually. Then it is really affecting your own relationship with another apartment who is a Muslim or a Hindu or a Christian. It has a ground level affecting thing is there. So you find several other, see, I have given a list of things actually. It is only in India. I am sure that this kind of a provocation takes place in every other country, especially in Bangladesh or where majorities are. I would say that today anybody who talks about secularism is looked at with suspicion, especially in India. And then, recently, some people have been lynched, some people have been murdered, killed. It's not only in India, but you also find that, in Bangladesh also is recently, some good secularist writers, bloggers and publishers, they were killed. You should not talk about this because Bangladesh is, majority. So even scientifically also you cannot express certain ideas, kind of objectively, critically, and then, you are termed as atheists and enemies of Islam. So recently Professor Kalburgi and the noted advocates of rational thinking for writing about anti-superstition. See, even superstition is something believable among the Hindus. So if you talk about anti-superstition, they will look at you as a kind of an enemy. So there is always a problem. This has been the problem for many years. A kind of, the nationalism, blasphemy, etc. vis-a-vis freedom of speech, freedom of expression. This is an area that we have not really tackled and then come to some kind of a consensus on this. There is always a problem is there. And the last problem is with regard to majority and minority. How do the majority treat the minority? It's very difficult, especially in Pakistan, for instance. Recently, even this Easter time, there was a hideous kind of a violence. Many people were killed there in Pakistan, Christians. And only in that context, actually, Pope Francis gave a speech, and then the Pope said, Easter was bloodied by a hideous attack which massacred many innocent people. So the Pope has to say this. So it is very difficult actually for minorities to live in a particular place. There is a joke actually. You may be born as a dog, but it all depends upon where you are placed. Even if you are born as a dog, you be born in Switzerland, they will say. Because you are not a stray dog, you are a pet. You have a name. You are provided a family, things like that. So they would say that if you are born a Hindu or a Christian, where are you? If a Christian in Pakistan, you have to bear all these things. If a Muslim in India or in other places, you have to bear many things. No. It's also actually an important thing that where one is placed. Like that. In India, actually, Indian constitutions gives minority rights and all. Minority rights, especially the recent minority group is Jain group, which has been accepted as a minority group. Constitution is really good. I tell you, it's one of the best constitutions that I have seen. When you study the Sri Lankan or Pakistan or Bangladesh and all, it's one of the best constitutions. You know that is a very largest, one of the largest democracy. Yeah, very good constitutions. And they give you a kind of a protection for Dalits and the tribals. These are the marginalized social groups in India. And they form 25% of the population of India, which means it's a very big group. And add Muslims, they are 160 million and more. Just add such a big chunk of people actually, they need to be protected. The Dalits. And the intercaste marriage, especially marrying with the Dalits, is something heinous actually, being considered as something heinous. And nowadays they have a number of honor killing, they say. Honor killing. That is, a family wants to preserve its own, maintain its dignity of an upper caste. So if your daughter has eloped with another Dalit boy, sometimes that girl is killed. Parents are very, very, very angry, and then they hate this kind of things. Many a time actually it's a Dalit boy who is killed in some way or other. So it is it's like that. They call it the honor killing. We want to maintain a kind of a dignity of our family, of our upper class structure, like that. So there is always a kind of a growing opposition to minority status, minority rights in India, especially by these fundamentalist groups. And I just want to say, I have also said it, we never heard earlier that Christian minority institutions, you need to get the certificate of minority. You don't need to. But in the last 2-3 years, now the government is saying that even if you are a Christian institution, you have to get the minority certificate. So you have to prove that you are a minority. Very interesting. Say, for instance, Georgetown University, is it a Muslim university? It's not. Everybody knows. It's a Christian university. It's a Jesuit university. Everybody knows. The government knows. But imagine Loyola College has to get minority certificate. It's one of the prestigious, one among the 10 colleges in India. It has to get a minority certificate. So now in the BJP rule, this is the present rule, the BJP is the nationalist party. Now they have this kind of a thing is there. New regulation has come. And there is also a growing opposition to reservation policy. Perhaps the Americans may not understand very much this, what you mean by this reservation policy, but it is something like affirmative action here. You know, that those people who are the socially marginalized people, they have to somehow or other climb up in the social ladder. They have to somehow climb up in the economic ladder. It is with this perspective that this kind of a concession, the government concessions, the rights, benefits are given to these people. And it is called reservation in technical terms. Now there are lots of opposition with regard to this. And you know, I have already mentioned that illegal migrants. Immigrants are so many, and then they are saying that nearly 2 million people are there in India. I don't know, maybe that it is being exaggerated, but somehow or other, that this causes real problem. This causes problem actually, you know, they come and then give their own ideology and then foster some of the groups within the states here to pick up, you know, row with the state government, with the police. And you know, also, you know, kind of, you know, drugs coming in. You know, it's one of the big menace actually spoiling the youngsters, the youth, everywhere actually. So you find that Dalits and tribals, you know, because many of these people are converts to Christianity and Islam, the Christian missionaries are targeted. So these churches are burnt, and then, you know, these kind of things they are targeted. So Christians are always looked at, you know, even though they give you very good education in the, you see, many of these ministers are the state government officials, sons and daughters will be studying in Christian institutions. But at the same time, they will talk against the Christians. This is something very illogical, no? So I find that there are two ways to more or less understand or perceive this problem and solve it to some extent. One is the constitutional way, the legal way. So it kind of court cases and all those stuff, you know. But, you know, it is very difficult actually, because court cases, I would say, who are these judges? These people are either Christians or Hindus or... So if you have got such lenience to a particular ideology, then you also perceive the whole problem differently. You know, this is happening actually. It finally rests on the person, you know, person with all kinds of identity. So, and as I said, that so much of historiography is there with regard to conflict, hatred, from the time of partition actually. One important Indian experience is a kind of a delayed justice. Justice is made, constitutions are good, legal procedures are taking place, but the thing is, justice is very, very delayed. One example I can give, that 1984 riots, the anti-Sikh riots, once the Indira Gandhi was shot dead by one of the commanders there, who happened to be a Sikh. So afterwards, the anti-Sikh riots, they killed so many people. I was one of the witnesses to see some of these people trans Yamuna, and then to going to some of these places where you find bones there. I was doing theology that time. So awful experience. When you see all these, oh, such things could happen. No, like this. So after 20 years, I mean 2 years ago, how many years now? 30 years, 84, 94, 2004, 2014. Only 2 years ago, we got justice. Those people got justice. Those people got convicted. 30 years it takes. So it is certainly, you know, one of the very great justice, he says, situations of mass murders and violence are the challenge to our legal system. I'm sure that it is the problem outside also. And it's also to the social conscience. The instigation of communal frenzy and the commission of mass murder cannot be ignored and excused. And final thing is, failure on either count will upset judicial norms and undermine the standing of state institutions in the mind of the citizens. So, and the second way that I propose is the community. That is why I wrote this particular book. It got published in 2018. This book speaks about building strong neighborhoods. Of course, you have got all the official matters are there. The law is there, constitution is there, constitutional law is there, and then lawsuits and everything as per procedures. You can go ahead. But at the same time, what I said, that ground level dialogue, that is very important, that we need to promote that kind of a neighborhood anywhere and everywhere. Actually, it is not going to address totally the problem at the socio-political level. This has to be addressed at the political level only. But the thing is, certain consciousness or the conscience can be developed among the people, seeing the whole arena of incidents, events, and the ideas that go on floating in the TVs or in the media. So they will come to understand to some extent. So religion and politics in secular India. So this one. The second one that I really wanted to tell them after explaining all this stuff, I said that you need a kind of people and leaders who resolve to establish peace in their neighborhoods. And more importantly, the government supports these initiatives, whether it is the people or NGOs or organized groups like that or secularists also. They should support. So there is a kind of an appeal from the beginning. I remember that Princeton Declaration in 1979 or something like that. From that time onwards, all the popes are saying, it's great leaders. They are saying to the whole world, they are appealing to the leaders, the religious leaders. They are saying, say for instance, John Paul II, he said, we appeal to all the religious leaders of the world in that conference, whatever their field of influence, to refuse to allow religion to be used to incite hatred and violence, to refuse to allow religion to be used to justify discrimination, and to seek forgiveness for past wrongs. He did it. He did it. And very recently that the Muslim leaders, any number of the top sheikhs, ministers of religion, grand muftis of the top Muslim majority nation, they are all gathered in one place in Morocco. They say, I think Marrakesh, I don't know how to pronounce this, Marrakesh Declaration in 2016. What did they say? They said in the context of ISIS and in the context of building relationship with the Muslims. They said Muslim nations should protect Christians from persecution. It's something great actually of Muslim leaders to come out to say this, which means it has got a kind of a stick shown to Pakistan also. In several other places like Syria and other places like, Of course, these are all our great leaders. They have got many quotes are there, from Benedict XVI and Pope Francis. The culture of selfishness and individualism that often prevails in our society is not what builds up and leads to a more habitable world. It is the culture of solidarity, what I said as the ground level dialogue, the ground level life, that does so, seeing others not as rivals and statistics, but brothers and sisters. And I find that this culture has to see itself in practice. Recently, you might know that there was a Hindu temple in Kerala. In Kerala, there was a great blaze. More than 100 people died actually, and more than 400 people got injured. And then I don't know how many died afterwards. I didn't see the latest statistics. I'm just asking the question, it's a Hindu temple. How many Muslim leaders in Kerala state, or how many Christian leaders in Kerala state would have gone to the temple? Just to show their solidarity with the Hindu mass. How many? Nobody. Perhaps I must check again whether somebody had gone there. Actually, what they would do is they would express a kind of a solidarity from their place. They normally do that, actually. So I finally would like to say a kind of a positive thing that we have a great legacy of pluralism, respect for pluralism, respect for dialogue. We have got a great legacies there from the time of Buddha and Mahavira. Mahavira is the founder of almost a kind of a systematizer of the Jain religion. So Buddha and Mahavira, they are contemporaries, are vouching non-violence in life. And though you see the great edicts of Emperor Ashoka, it's a kind of is a theme for a separate discussion. The edicts of the Emperor Ashoka, respecting and protecting all religious communities. The legacy of the devotional poets in 6th century. And you see the Emperor Akbar, Din Ilahi, trying to get all the religious scholars and communities together. We have got the great Western Indologists who unearthed the riches of Indian tradition. So others. We know our own man, Gandhi, the attitude of Gandhi, especially binding the Hindus and Muslims together, and who called Harijan the Dalits, the marginalized people. Harijans is the people of God, he said, first time. It's the people of Hari, people of God, he said. And to this day, any number of secular-minded people, secularists writing, fighting against all kinds of things. We have a very good legacy, and somehow or other we need to have a kind of faith in such people. We must have a faith in this legacy. We must have faith in people who fight against kind of a narrow-mindedness, homogenizing things. And I would say in a very pointedly that you need to upbring children. And there needs to be a kind of a schooling in tolerance from young age, wherever it is, whether it is in America or anywhere, or in India. Somehow or other we need. That is why we give lot more interest and attention to interreligious education, especially from the center that I come from. Whoever wants to get our recent newsletter, I will send it to you, provided you give the email address to Tamara. I will send you the recent newsletter. Interreligious education is very, very important. And of course, as I said, that there is a role of the state, role of media, etc. And we need to somehow or other restrain from arguments and debates. There are certain levels where you cannot really argue because you cannot step in another soul. It's not possible. The best thing is, to allow these people to stand apart, see the differences, respect the differences. That is very important. Don't keep on arguing on this, trying to convert, trying to convince. It's not necessary at all. And I would say that there needs to be many programs on healing the historical memories. And finally, to celebrate communion. Communion in festival, neighborhood celebrations, common festivals, all these things are there. Thank you.